Hi guys, good afternoon. It's Grant DL from Contract Scotland here. I'm sitting today having a wee chat with my colleague Andrea Gaffney. Andrea works within our build and housing division, and I look after our civil engineering division on a freelance basis. We at Contract are looking to do some more interactive updates for candidates and clients, given the fact that we can't get out on site very often and see people as much just now. And we thought we may put a wee general topic together and as a market update for people. What's been happening the last couple of months within the industry, what we're expecting to see over the next couple of months into quarter 1 next year as well. And more widely than that, we'll probably start to do more specific topics for these updates as well later on. But we'll get into this, and obviously, if anybody has any questions or comments after, please drop us a wee note and get in touch with us. We can have a wee chat with you. But Andrea, obviously, you're back in a couple of months. How have you found working your division in the business?
Yeah, no, that's right. I've probably been back full time for a couple of months. I initially came back on some part-time hours as the furlough scheme allowed, but it's actually been busier than I expected. I've been pleasantly surprised. The temporary build division has been experiencing pretty healthy levels of activity. Our vacancy numbers have been pretty steady throughout. In terms of contract durations, we're getting quite a lot of short-term cover work, so there's maybe a little bit more in terms of shorter-term contracts available. Particularly as probably understandable at the moment, a lot of cover for COVID isolation periods. But there's certainly sections of the build division that are holding up really well. For example, the retail division that my colleague Dion looks after, I think that's actually even busier this year than it was the same time last year. Housing has also been keeping me pretty busy. The only area of the build division I think that's maybe a little bit behind on where it was last year in terms of our activity is with the larger tier 1 builders. There's been a little bit less moving as quickly in terms of new projects in that section. But all in all, the build division's been pretty healthy. What about you guys?
Oh, good. Fantastic. Glad to hear it. It's positive to hear that even in the market we've had this year, against the backdrop of what's been happening, we're busier in some areas. I think that's promising going into next year as well. Civil engineering has been fairly, I'm not going to say consistent, but certainly good from our point of view in terms of activity. It's obviously been quite easier, but it's certainly easier to continue works throughout lockdown on a civil engineering front. You've been able to do things outside, earthworks, muck shifting, all that other stuff. So all the civil engineering contractors have at least been able to work in some capacity through lockdown. And as we've moved towards coming out of it, albeit touch wood just now, we're seeing some more activity again. Some particular things it's really welcome to see. Renewables, wind farms are making a big return over the last kind of 6 or 7 months, and look to be doing to continue to do so. We've seen that being on both onshore and offshore. We've seen work from framework clients. We've seen projects within such areas as Scottish Water and Network Rail. And tying into what you said about housing, the groundworks contractors have still been very busy, which again is offering opportunity just now as well. We've actually seen quite a fair bit in the east of Scotland. Actually, it's a funny one. It's civil engineering contractors. A lot of the work more recently has been west-based. We've seen a couple of things pick up in the east. I don't know if you've noticed a location difference at all, but that's one thing that's come up.
I mean, certainly we've been having a pretty high demand for staff in and around Edinburgh, the borders, Lothians in general, really. And in particular, a skill set that we have been experiencing a strong demand for has been those with residential experience, whether that be traditional private house building or kind of high-rise multi-storey apartment blocks. Are there any other particular geographic regions that you guys are experiencing demand in?
It's a tricky one to put a one area location on. I think one thing that a lot of businesses have had to take stock of just now is that they're wanting to try and, where possible, keep their permanent staff local to home. The nature of construction is you go where the jobs are, but they're trying to promote at least something in the way of a halfway house to try and keep people happy at the minute. So we're seeing short-term demand roles for positions that are kind of dotted around the country. Freelancers are obviously a lot more accustomed to having to travel where the jobs are and just take that into their day-to-day kind of lifestyle. But it's definitely brought up an area where candidates are having to be more willing to travel. think if they're more flexible on it, it'll allow for greater opportunity. It has slightly impacted availability of people in the Central Belt as of late, because where candidates have been taken to a short-term job, things have gone well and perhaps extended on. It obviously creates a gap for them in Glasgow, Edinburgh, Central Belt to come back to. But no, generally still positive to see. And I think, as I say, willingness to adapt through all of this is something that we're echoing across the board, and that'll create opportunity for people. What about, obviously, you and I personally, we talk a lot day to day anyway, but how have you found kind of working from home and dealing with things day to day at the minute?
Okay, it's been all right. It's obviously not ideal. I think pretty much everyone else at Contract Scotland, I'm a people person. And so I do miss being in the office. I miss being able to look left and right and really have that kind of in-person teamwork experience that we usually have. But we've got a pretty positive mindset at the moment, and I think we've really been making the most of it. Personally speaking, there are some silver linings. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm absolutely daft about my dog, so getting to spend a bit more time with him every day has been lovely, albeit he's not the most useful assistant. But no, I think we've been making really good use of it and effective use of video conferencing platforms like this, like Microsoft Teams. Have you guys been finding the same thing? What about you personally?
It's an interesting one. I think a lot of people is having to become accustomed to this, and you see no end of pieces coming on just now about people's mental health and working from home and trying to separate their lifestyle at the minute. The one good thing I do like is that clients have adapted even things like interview processes and utilising Microsoft Teams for that. It's perhaps breaking down a barrier as opposed to the just more traditional phone interview. It's probably actually just worth noting for people watching the video just now that we've actually just updated as a business our candidate interview guidance document and client interview guidance document to include something for Teams, or video conference in general. So maybe actually post that in this link. So if you want to have a look at that, that's a good point as well. But for me personally, I've kind of come to terms with it. I don't think this will be a change in the immediate future. I think for me, one thing I particularly miss is getting out to sites, and actually getting to see people on the ground. But that'll come in due course. I think in the more immediate term, we need to think about as a business and as an industry how we're going to develop and train people, and continue to look at career development for people when you're not able to work with them as closely as what we have done in the past. Again, that's within contract and other businesses as well. These are all conversational pieces you could spend enough time talking about, but I think it's something that we definitely need to take into consideration of in the future. Speaking of, though, let's move forward. The next kind of couple of months, moving towards the end of the year, Q1, what are you looking at just now? Where do you think the market's going to lead towards? Is there any particular disciplines you might be looking for as well?
Oh, well, to be honest, I think there's a general sense, at least among my own clients, that we just kind of want to get to the turn of the year. There's a general sense that people just kind of want to put 2020 behind us. And again, as you said, touch wood, we don't end up going back away in terms of lockdown restrictions. But on top of that, the conversations that I'm having with my own clients just now are actually really quite positive. With regards to workload next year, it's sounding very much like 2021 should be a pretty busy time. There's been a decent amount of projects that were supposed to kick off this year that, for obvious reasons, wasn't able to happen. So those have been put back into next year. And there's a couple of interesting sections that look to have a bit of growth in them. For example, big residential schemes, such like big PRS, build to rent projects, our tier 1 sort of commercial building clients really seem to be targeting these kinds of developments next year. So there will be a good amount of demand for candidates from a commercial building background that are able to apply those skills to residential developments. That looks to be a really strong area of activity. The public sector frameworks, obviously you've mentioned frameworks earlier on in the conversation. Though the budgets might not be finalised, there's been a healthy stream of new projects being awarded, new schools, healthcare centres, etc. So that looks pretty good. And then as a result of the new normal that we've been talking about, I am anticipating that we're going to see a spike in spend from the NHS on new COVID testing facilities, and I think that could be a really strong area of activity for our fit out and refurbishment clients within the building sector, as it's these kind of strip out quick, fast track turnaround to create new facilities that are undoubtedly going to be needed. Are there any predictions that you have?
I mean, that all sounds fantastic. It's creating opportunity for everyone across the board, isn't it? I think from a civil engineering perspective, I don't necessarily think we're going to see too much of a change in the next couple of months in the immediate term for where the workload's going to come from. You know, I think post April into the new tax year, we're going to see some new frameworks come through, like Scottish Water. We'll hopefully see a pick up in some rail working opportunities as well. And then the expectation is to continue to see more from the renewable sector and the groundwork sector as well. These are areas I think that are going to really be pushed forward next year for Scotland, as well as we continue towards moving things to like a carbon neutral environment, and obviously this being a big thing in everyone's minds at the minute for global warming. So that again, I think will create opportunity. For us, we could really be doing with seeing some more site engineering stroke sub-agent, site agent level candidates at the minute on the freelance division. It seems to be the move at the minute that candidates are moving, the clients are moving towards a more traditional sub-agent level role, looking for people who can do a bit more management as an engineer, or similarly as a manager can pick up an instrument as well. So that's a continued theme, and I'm expecting that to be there for the next couple of months. But it's good to hear, obviously, it's still busy across different divisions. So thank you to everybody who's logged in and watched this video today. And Andrea, thanks for your time. I think this has been a worthwhile piece for us to do, and we're going to look to try and do a wee bit more of these. But as I say, if anybody has a conversation topic that Andrea, Dion, or colleague Julie Fleming in the build division can help out with, or certainly in the freelance side for myself, my colleague Kirsten Whitfield, or Haley Calder, if we can offer any specific commentary or assistance with anything, give us a wee shout. We'll put in a link in here for our interview guidance form as well, and we'll hopefully speak to you all soon. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.